Wow, Singapore is so stressful, man.
And told my mom that the reason why I wasn't doing well was because I put on weight.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Time for Mental Health. Time for Mental Health is a podcast where we aim to normalize the sharing of mental health experiences. I'm your host Fabian. Join with me, we have Nicholas, we have Constance, and we have Tina. Before we move on to the main segment, if you like mental health related content, please remember to subscribe to the channel. If you like what you're hearing later on, click the bell, click the like. Before we move on to any topics, maybe you'd like to give a little round of introduction. Perhaps starting with Nicholas.
Hi guys, Nicholas. I was also previously on the gaming episode, if you guys remember. For those who probably do not, it was an episode on how so I was a gamer on one of the higher levels in Singapore. And I aspired to be one of the top players around the world. So I talked about how it overall affected my mental health when I sort of failed to do so, and how eventually it sort of made me a better person in the end. That was pretty much the entire episode. But today we do have Constance as well as Tina. We'll let them take the stage.
Yep.
I'm Constance. I am 23 this year. I was a national swimmer ever since I was a kid, and then I moved on to do Jiu-Jitsu, and then found my passion in competing in it. And now I am a national competitor for Jiu-Jitsu too.
Awesome. So next we have Tina.
Hi everyone, my name is Tina. I am the founder of Ouioats. Ouioats is a brand that has overnight oats, juice, and smoothies. And I'm originally from Taiwan. I moved to Singapore about 3 years ago. I have a full-time job, but I've always had a passion in health and wellness. That's why I started this brand, Ouioats.
Awesome. So now moving on to the main segment of the show. I know Constance has been very open about sharing her experiences. So maybe for audiences, like international audience who do not really yet know or watch any of the videos, we'd like to share a little bit more about what has happened.
So for me, mental health has always been a very big part of my life. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been a very sensitive kid since young. So I guess emotions it's not a stranger to me. I feel for things very easily. And I was also one of those kids who was always a loner in school, had trouble making friends, and never did that well in school. Like I had always failed my maths. I just feel the Singapore education system just not for me.
Very hard,
It's very like, how do you say? It's very like, it's black and white,
Structured,
very structured. And ever since I was a kid, I just don't do well in those kind of situations where structure is good. Because for me, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was P4. Yeah, I think that was like 10, 11 years old. It explains also, I guess, the side effects of what being diagnosed with ADHD is. You are hyperactive and all that. But what was really strange though was I wasn't hyperactive in my behavior in school, but it was more of the social aspect, the mental health aspect. I wouldn't be able to kind of put together my thoughts that well. I was able to articulate it, but it was just everywhere. Just how I was socially was really strange. Yeah, I mean, with all those experiences and how I was as a kid, I had a lot of, I guess, trouble growing up, not being able to fit in and all that. And as you can imagine, that actually really impacted my mental health. And also, I guess, upbringing too. I had Asian upbringing, Asian parenting. It's really, really strict. I was thrown into competitive swimming at a very young age. I think I was 7 at that age, 6, because my mom was a national swimmer herself. So you would imagine the expectations and all that. And I'm not the only one. I have a younger sister too. My younger sister was one of those swimmers who was naturally gifted. Like she did so well when she was younger. Like she would break records, and make her own. But I was never one of those swimmers too. I guess I was like a slow burner. I only started excelling in swimming when I was, I think, 11 or 12 years old, when I managed to get a scholarship to Singapore Sports School for swimming. Yeah, that was the only time my swimming started peaking. Yeah, so when I was P3, I remember being really stressed out over school, and again, no friends. I felt really compared to my sister, especially when it comes to swimming. And I became suicidal. I think that was purely out of the need for attention and trying to get love. I just remember feeling really alone and just not understood. Like I was failing in class and I was getting scolded by my parents, but I was like also trying to explain to them that I'm doing my best, but to them it's I'm just being lazy, which again is very Asian parenting. If you're not achieving something that they set out for you to do, means you're doing the opposite of what
Right.
There's no gray area. So again,
Correct.
I was brought up in a very like it's either this or that. Anything below acing is failing, and
Yeah.
there was this such a bad narrative, bad notion around failing, and like again, when I'm then now looking back, I'm like, no wonder it's so hard for me when I was growing up, because I myself would put expectations on myself when my parents are not there. Yeah. So, anyways, back to that story. So I was suicidal, and my parents, I guess they thankfully, immediately contacted like a therapist for me, and I've received counseling from a very young age. The reason why they also got me a own private personal therapist is because I wrote in my journal when I was P3 that I wanted to kill myself. And that was what rang alarm bells. And obviously the teacher, when she read that journal, she had to let my parents know. And my parents, they themselves, they don't know what to do because they have never dealt with this. I'm literally their first kid. So they have never dealt with such situations before. I was actually brought to the school counselor first. And I remember telling the school counselor like what I was feeling and everything. And she completely just disregarded what I was feeling. Like I there's this thing where like you're talking to someone but you know that it's just not going in.
Right.
Like she just doesn't get it. And like for me being that age and like feeling that way, it really does say something. Like, I'm like, okay, this I don't even know why I'm like wasting my time here, I don't even know why I'm sharing it to her, because she's just not getting it. And the thing is, when someone's suicidal, you just want to be heard and you want to feel seen and you want your experiences to be validated. And I didn't get that at home, neither did I get that in school. And thankfully, when my mom found me this therapist, like she's been with me till now that I'm 23. That was when I was P3. Yeah. So like that therapist like hits up to her. Like she's been with me through the ups and downs of life, literally. She's seen me grow up. And she's like literally my second mom.
Wow.
And she built that safe space. And that's when I learned the importance of safe spaces when it comes to therapy. Because not everybody, like there's this very bad, again, notion around seeing a therapist.
Correct.
I actually never understood that stereotype of like it's a bad thing
Yeah.
that you go and see a therapist, like you'll be black marked, there's something wrong with you. Like I never understood it because I always seen it's like you're physically ill, you go and see a doctor.
Correct.
To me, it's literally that, Yeah. So things got a little bit better. My swimming started picking up. I think she just knew how to kind of form the therapy session in a way where like it stirs this all the things, the feelings, negative feelings I'm feeling. She kind of, I don't know how she did it because I was so young also, but like she just made me boil up all these feelings and then use it as, I guess, fuel to motivate myself to do better in swimming. But then that also kind of led to another problem, which was I was doing well in swimming for my parents.
Not for yourself.
Not for myself. Just to be like, hey, my sister's not the only daughter you have. Yeah. I laugh it off now, but I was so, okay, wait, hold on. The sun's coming out. I was so depressed as a kid because of that. Because I always feel like I'm being compared with. And I mean, no faults of my sisters, right? Like she literally just...
She was just there.
She was just there. She was doing her thing. She was working hard. So like, literally her results and hard work should be validated, right? The thing is, I have never had anything against her, but it was just how I was always in her shadow.
Right.
Yeah. So I grew up with comparison. Yeah. And that strangely fueled me to do really well in swimming. So that's how I got the scholarship into sports school, and then ever since then, I was doing really well until I was secondary three. I don't know why it all begins with three, but in secondary three, my swimming started. I wasn't improving at all. It was stagnating, and I basically went to a spiral of like eating. And I think I was also going through puberty, back then. And I remember my sports school coach told me that, and told my mom that the reason why I wasn't doing well was because I put on weight. So I was a teenage kid in a mixed school. And I'm, again, puberty, I'm growing and everything's maturing. It would make sense that I put on a little bit of weight, right? But for it to be like directed at, okay, the performance side of things, and for my tiger mom at that time, just like, it's all your fault, like you didn't watch what you eat when you were overseas competing, you put on so much weight, it's just all your fault. And I just remember just all this blame being put on my shoulders. It was just too much. It was extremely heavy. And my coach after that made me step on the scale almost every single day before training. And I had a couple of seniors who were doing the same thing too. So and I'm competitive by nature also. So like when you make like a bunch of girls stand on a scale before training,
Very passive,
like
yeah.
and not only that,
It's
I
a
became
comparison.
competitive,
Yeah.
and I started comparing myself to my seniors, and my seniors started comparing herself to me. So imagine like I'm like literally I'm lighter than you, haha. It's the most like thing, like looking back. And whoever, if my senior watches this, she know. So like it was just it was such a terrible experience. And I remember thinking back, like when I was secondary one, I've met some of my seniors in sports school, and you would never imagine that. To me back then, I would never imagine that athletes would have eating disorder issues.
Right.
Yeah, it was just like, because I've been an athlete all my life, right? And at that age, I was like, it just baffles me that my seniors are talking about their waist size when they're athletes. Like, why does it even matter? Like they're already literally working out, like training night and day. Like, why does it even matter? And I don't know, it's such a small issue, like why are you even worrying about that? I was thinking that when I was secondary one, and then here I am at secondary three, like, oh my God, going through the same body issues and all that mental health stuff. And like, it was just a crazy time for me, because I remember waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, eating an orange, and then secretly going down to the gym in sports school to run 10 kilometers for an hour. Yeah. And like, no one, I would like pretend that like I just woke up when I go down to the pool, and no one would know about it. And I would go for swimming training as per normal, and then I would not eat anything until snack time. Even then, sometimes like I feel really guilty, so I will not eat at all. And then imagine that, like literally relying on an orange that probably would have been burnt off by then.
Right.
And then going for afternoon training. So I got really, really skinny, like really skinny. And as happy as I was looking at the scale, I was just starting to feel like really exhausted. And then as light as I wasn't even doing well, because the focus of training for the good timings and all that, it was now becoming training to look skinny. The focus is just off, really distorted. And again, the way I viewed myself now is also really distorted. Every time I see a lower weight, it's just not good enough for me. I need to go lower. And when you have this kind of mentality, you're really freaking miserable, because there is no end to the number. Like, as long as I'm not zero, like, there's just no end. And I'm literally killing myself here, because imagine, like, I'm just relying on an orange and I'm training, like, 2-3 times a day. Like, it really does a lot to your hormones, especially as a girl, too, when you're going through puberty. My hormones were everywhere. I would have severe mood swings. And, like, again, because I have, like, that suicide stage when I was younger, it kind of came back, too. So everything just wrapped up, in this like depression, eating disorder, bulimic, and all that. It's just all wrapped up together, and it exploded. And I was just not myself. I was like a zombie and everything. And I mean, forget about swimming. At this point, like swimming is like not even in the books for me anymore, and performing and all that. So it got to a point where my mom, I was outside eating with my mom, and at this point, I'm like literally like taking tissue and dipping and literally cleaning off the oil on my food.
Right.
And like I always ask for clear soup, or even like my own water. I will like basically any food I eat on the outside, I must have it like cleaned off from oil and all that, which is always there, which is not a normal thing at all. and my mom saw that, and there was this one time I had lunch with her, and she started crying. And it was like, my mom never cried in front of me before, like before this, never, ever. And I asked her like, what's wrong? And then she said, like, your neck is just so skinny. Like what happened to you, Like, I think it was also the realization that she has been really, really tough on me. Really, really tough. And like just to see her vulnerable, like it made me cry too, because I've never, like, it's one of those things where like when you see your mom cry, you start crying yourself because it really like make your heart pain. Ever since then, I was like, okay, there is something wrong with the way I'm eating, my eating habits. There is something wrong, and I have to recover from this. And I'm just not happy. I need to do something about it. So I started going for therapy sessions, and on top of that, like my mom helps me with my, again, eating plans, but this time healthier. But again, it's still a journey. Like, I think people always feel that when you go through like mental health issues and all that, it can just be cured by like a pill, whether it's antidepressants or a certain therapy and all that. It's not. Like, it haunts you. Like, it's always at the back of your head, no matter how many years has passed. And like, I mean, obviously speaking from personal experience, and that was the frustration there. Like with depression, anxiety, and eating disorder for me, is like I'm always trying to solve things. I'm always trying to get better because I want to be better, and I know that I have that in me to be better. But life is never like a linear path. It's ups and downs, and it's something that's out of our control. And when I personally have to deal with all these ups and downs, I fall into my bad habits, which is eating disorder. I'll go back to my binging, because food at the end of the day gives me that instant gratification that I need when I'm feeling down. And that's the reason how eating disorder even exists, because binging disorders, people go to food for comfort, because it literally spikes up your serotonin levels, right? So, and dopamine. So it's that instant cure, which something that I'm guilty of it, but like something I go to when I'm depressed. So I was really, really frustrated. But then I found jiu-jitsu. So finding something that I love kind of numb everything that I was running from and facing. It was like a blanket that covered of it. So I was like, okay, I actually stopped therapy. I was like, oh, actually I'm fine already. Like I found my new obsession. I used to obsess about my weight and how I felt and all that. But when I found my love for jiu-jitsu, it kind of took away the pain. I just trained every single day. And at the point of time, I was not thinking like, okay, I want to be good at this to compete and represent Singapore again. Because I think at that time, I was like, I'm so done with being an athlete. I just want to stay healthy, feel good with my body and all that. But again, with the I think I have like OCD, like seriously terrible OCD. So when I find anything that I'm passionate about and I love, I just do it every single day. I work so hard, not just to excel in it, but just because it makes me happy. So I did it every day just because it made me happy. And then suddenly I found myself competing in it because my friend was like, you got nothing to lose, you should just go compete in it. And actually, funny story, when I first joined Evolve, which was the gym that I started my martial arts journey in, they were making me sign up a package where choose the gloves or the gi. And I was like, I will never do jiu-jitsu, because I was like also watching it at the side. I was like, it's just too much body contact, and I feel like I'm just gonna make a fool out of myself. So I started off Muay Thai first, but then again, I had a group of friends who joined the same time as me, and they were like, why not you should just try jiu-jitsu? Like, again, you paid for the whole membership, must as well just do everything, or not, it's like wasted. Yeah. So that's how I started doing jiu-jitsu. And then again, the same bunch of friends were like, we're gonna compete, why not you join us for fun? Like, this is literally for fun. You got no expectations, nothing, just do it for fun. And I won my competition, and I was like, hey, there's actually something here. And then usually when you win, like the coaches would obviously take notice of you, and they see that like I've been training really hard. But it was just this really strange time when I was like, okay, I actually go every day just to make myself happy, not actually to compete. But just so happens because I'm putting in the same number of hours for like, as those who were actually had that goal of competing, like I just naturally did well in my competitions because I actually put in the same number of hours, I put in the same number of attention and effort, you know, and all the hard work. But I was like, okay, maybe I should just give competing a try again, because at the end of the day, like competing is literally in my soul. I've competed ever since at such a young age. I must as well just give it a try again. Maybe I'll excel in it even further. So that's how I kind of started my jiu-jitsu career.
Right,
Yeah.
awesome. And I'm not sure if you guys can relate as well, like Asian parenting.
I think I'm lucky enough. My parents are not that like super Asian, but obviously like growing
Still got
up, like they put me to all the to do all the sports, music, and everything, and have tutors for pretty much everything. And yeah, I was they were very strict. I just had to come home every day right after school and that. But then I think like over time, like they've just trusted me more. I mean, I have 3 other siblings, and I think they just kind of be more open about everything, and then so it was okay. Yeah.
I think that's also the difference between when you're the first child and the third.
I'm the third one.
The third child, right? It's like when you're the first child, like everything is like on you.
Yeah.
But then by the third child, it's like even the second child, it's like you run out of fumes already. You know, you're just like, okay, just do what you want. Just do what you want. Like, okay, I don't care anymore.
Wash hand.
Yeah, that's why I always tell my sister, like, she always has it easier. Like, my mom was tough on her, but she had it easier. Like, even when she chose to walk away from swimming, she was actually pretty terrified because, like, she was literally the last one standing to carry on my mom's legacy. But for her to say, like, I don't want to swim anymore, like, I just can't. Like, it was very terrifying for her to tell my mom. For me, it was already very terrifying. Like, I had to lie and say that I'm taking a break. But actually, I'm walking away from it forever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole lot to take in actually. You've had the luxury of having to been referred to a therapist at a young age once you've noticed your symptoms, as well as being able to find a outlet with regards to either swimming or maybe even the jiu-jitsu when it came to being in a very dark time. So what is your sort of advice, or how do you picture yourself if, let's say, none of these ever happened? Because I speak for those who didn't have the privilege of having all of these. Many people definitely, when they go through similar experiences as you, they may not have had the luxury of going to have all these help.
Yeah.
So how do you, or rather, like, what advice can you give to these people should they be going through some things like that?
I think one thing I really struggled with, I mean, with therapy or not, is I wouldn't say my therapy didn't work, but it starts with yourself, like whether you want to help yourself. I can have all the therapy, all the doctors in the world trying to figure out what's going on with me, but if I don't want to, I myself who's going through it don't want to do anything about it. I can't help myself. So it comes to self-empowerment. I think that's very important, that you are aware of what you're going through and what you're feeling, and that it's not normal, and you want to be better. For me, like, obviously no one wants to be unhappy, you know, like I've actually had many friends who, like, I mean, a combination, those who are kind of like on the same path as I had, childhood trauma and all that, and they actually want to be better. And I also had a handful of friends who, they have childhood trauma and they don't want to do anything about it. They just like wallow, you know, they just go through their cycles. And as a friend, all you can do is just be there for them. Like, in addressing this kind of friends, I literally give them all the resources that I can have, you know, like that I have for myself, and I offer it to them. And whether they pick up the phone and call the therapist for them, for themselves, like, it's another thing. Like, I think therapy cannot be forced, and helping yourself cannot be forced. You know, if the person doesn't want to be helped, there's nothing we can do, but we can only just be there for them. That's one thing. And secondly, I feel that mental health, there's a stigma to it, right? Like, it's so common now. Everybody knows the stigma. It's where victimizing oneself and self-compassion comes into play. Like, there's a fine line between victimizing oneself, which, like, all the attention seeking that is related to mental health, right? But when people, especially girls, have mental health issues, literally the cliche thing, the first thing that the boyfriend will say is, okay, you're just trying to get attention. It's literally the most cliche thing ever, and very common, actually. So it got me reflecting on the fine lines between victimizing oneself and having self-compassion. And what got me there is because when I was hit, like when we were going through the COVID years, I had to really sit down and realize whether I love myself or not without all my accomplishments. Because in 2019, before COVID hit, I was having the year of my life. I literally checked off all the boxes of all the goals I had for my sport. I literally went from being like a normal person who actually didn't want to do jiu-jitsu to winning the world championships in 2019 and like becoming world champion and all that. It was bizarre to me. And then I moved on to win the gold medal in SEA Games, which was my debut at SEA Games. And like I was that swimmer who wanted to even qualify for SEA Games but couldn't, and obviously bowed out before I could even go to that level. So to win a medal, I mean, let alone gold medal, but like just a medal at SEA Games and like representing my country but in a different sport, like that was really surreal. So 2019 was a year for me, and I had so many plans for 2020, 2021 and all that, but obviously that didn't go as planned. The whole world was on shutdown, and I was really left with the question like, okay, do I love myself even when I can't perform? And I was hit with a very hard no. It was a very tough pill to swallow, and it pushed me back, like literally, like I had to ask myself like, how am I going to survive the next 2 years? Because COVID's a very uncertain thing, and I hate uncertainties, right? With COVID, you're like, okay, maybe this competition will happen, maybe it will not, and I can't live like this, and all the gyms were closed. So if you think about it, all my happy places were just gone, like overnight. And again, I fell back into depression, eating disorders, and I had to really dig deep and come up with my own solutions to how to like feed that hunger, that to maintain that sanity that I really want. And now I find myself saying no to things a lot easier. I used to put what everybody wants out of me before what I actually want, and I would have a lot of commitments last time, and no matter how tired I am, I will still go and do it. But right now, like I find myself saying no to things easier. So then it got me thinking like, am I like because to other people will think that like when you make plans and then you suddenly cancel, like people will be like, hey, you're just victimizing yourself, like it's not a big deal, like stick to the plans that you've made. But then to me it's like it's self-compassion. You're especially when you have gone through so many years of your life doing things for other people to make other people happy. I realized it's just all boils down to the problem of black and white upbringing and living in a imperfect world that constantly strives to be perfect. Because then how do we love ourselves in such a world, in such a society, right? Because like we see everything like society desires and we want to be that. It naturally becomes our desire too. When is it really our desire to be like this or to look like this or be this way or get that job or whatever, and that's also where I learned, actually I chanced upon this phrase that I really really like feel for it, resonate with it. It says like unconditional love is always a lot easier in the right conditions. It's so deep. It's like just one simple line, but it's so deep if you actually think about it. Yeah. Like it kind of resonates with me because of how I am as a person and experiences I've had. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I think on that note also, I do want to share a quote myself, and it's that anything for the price of your mental health is too expensive.
Yeah.
Right? I think you've learned to sort of just say no to anything that may just weigh you down, and you've come to become that person where you're just able to prioritize yourself first. And I think that's really important in the world that we live in. As you mentioned, we strive to be in a perfect world but it's so imperfect, and people are just trying to emulate so much things, just having the perfect life and everything. In Singapore is so stressful, man. On that line, just sitting on that line. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. But we're also like, I mean, for me being in the position that I am in, I feel like I'm very, very privileged. I'm actually very, very blessed. Like I had my downs in life, but I also had my highs, and everything I have now, I'm very blessed. And that's one of the things where like I think mental health is so tricky. Like people in it, we complain about this and that, and then we ask ourselves, like, should we even be complaining, because we're actually really, really blessed to be in our own positions, but we get frustrated because it's like, yeah, we are really blessed, but at the same time,
It's all relative.
the troubles of life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all relative. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like we have first world problems as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, first world problems. Yeah. So I think for me personally, I just learned how to. It's really important to just sit through it. Like, it's easier said than done. Like, I have my fair share of troubles and dealing with it also. So like, I think what's really important is loving yourself and having self-compassion, loving yourself through the troubles of life. Yeah, and knowing that, you know, whatever your best looks like for the day, it's your best. Like, there's nothing more to it. Yeah.
I think it's really tough to actually, we may be able to say like love yourself through the tough times, but
Yeah, it's really hard,
it's
yeah.
all in hindsight, right? we say it all in
Relative,
hindsight. So for the people going through all these tough times, what would be your advice? You know, let's say you're put in a position where you're back in primary 3, and you haven't had the privilege of having a therapist or an outlet to vent your frustration or whatever. What would you think you would have done?
I would honestly say I would be dead by now.
Right.
But
Right.
no, because like, there was no person that I look up to, like, that was older than me and that I could relate to. And that's why, like, I really hold myself accountable when I, go for charity events and do workshops with youth at risk kids. Because, like, there was one that I did where with the Team Singapore athletes, so it's just a bunch of us from different sports coming together to kind of make a difference in these youth at risk lives. And they're really, really, really poor thing. They're like, even sometimes they were like P2 to P6. And they really, really have it rough. You know, they have parents some of them have parents who are both in jail, or parents who are divorced and both their parents don't want them, and they have to go and stay with their grandma. Like, imagine like that. I mean, I didn't have that. As in, I have a loving family, and yet I still had that. But like, I'm one to complain. You know, when you meet people like that, it really humbles you, and you're just like, oh wow, like it really touches you. I shared my story to them, and they cried, and like I almost cried with them, because I was like, oh my goodness, like, how you even cry about my story? Like, my story doesn't even sound half as bad as yours.
Yeah, but we can't really say that. You know, I think that people are in a lot of position where they try to think, should I even be, sorry about my own bad things when they compare to other people, in poorer states, right? That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, everything's relative, I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't think like that is one of the best ways, but it is one of the way to cope.
And it's also one of the main reasons why people feel ashamed to come up with their problems.
Exactly.
And stand up and say, because they're like, okay, why people have opinions about this? People are always going to have opinions about everybody. So it's just, but they don't realize that, just like for me, being up there and sharing my story to these kids, it actually changed their life. Even for that 1 second, like them feeling less alone for that 1 second.
Exactly.
Like they can go back to like their homes and they go through what they go through. But for that 1 second, they knew that they're not alone, and whatever they are feeling is valid.
And so that's like the social aspect that we're going into, right? And on that note, I do believe you've mentioned quite a fair bit about how Tina has helped you with your eating disorder with her startup. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Ugliest in my house.
Oh, don't say
Subjective,
that.
guys.
That's
Subjective.
crazy. Maybe you guys can drop in for a workout and then have
Right.
Let's
Oh,
I went to Mongolia.